Liru, and the show is Friday Night Debates.
And in that process of accepting people, introducing those people to Jesus Christ, introducing them to the steps and the precepts of Jesus Christ.
Is disempowering for me. So, going back to being an African right now, if you talk to a young person in Africa and tell them to go back to the basics, I'll say go to farm.
Power Bank, which was established to say that we want youths to gain funds.
So I wish you can refer to me the examples of these extroverts that have made it today for us to prove and support your notion.
To really spend the time in doing the research and doing the innovation in order to get to the point where you can produce a new product for. I'm always ready for the war again. Go down that road again. It's all the same. And I'm always ready for the fight again. You know I'm right again. It's all the same. Tell me who's gonna save me from myself. Without you, I'm all alone. Tell me who's gonna save me from this hell. Without you, I'm all alone. Pray for you, if I'm not die for you. No matter where you go, remember the road that'll lead you. Need you home, need you home.
Good evening, everyone, and this is Liru, and welcome to Friday Night Debates. So this debate comes after a post that I posted on social media, which I was sharing my thoughts, by the way, but then we decided to hear everyone's side of the story, because it won't be fair if we judge the Blazers according to what I just said. So today I'm joined by someone who's going to be representing the Blazers. I've got someone who's going to represent the parents, and I've got a psychologist, and I've got someone who's representing the girl child, the female students, and I also have someone who's going to be representing the boy child, the male students. They are going to all introduce themselves fully.
Dando Ivan, I'm a general civilian and a lover of content and podcasts. And that's it.
Okay, my name is Mavizi Tanyati. I'm a parent, and I'm also a founder of an organization called Betterment Foundation.
Well, my name is Chloe Boxen. I'm a psychologist and a mental health advocate.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Pili. I'm a student. I'm representing the female students.
My name is Chamba Mdazi. I'm a student and representing male students.
Okay, so in the post I said Blazers must fall. Do you agree as a male student? Okay, why?
We benefit something from them, so I can't say no to Blazers because they place me. I can't say no to Blazers.
Okay, so in your case you are referring to the female Blazers.
Yeah.
Okay, so you benefit. So basically you are the Blazee.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't say no to them because you benefit something from them.
Yeah.
Okay, what about those male students who do not get anything from the Blazers? Actually, the Blazers are taking their girlfriends.
I can't comment on Blazers taking their girlfriend.
Because you have never lost a girlfriend. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What's your view? Do you think Blazers must fall?
I cannot say they must fall. I cannot say they must not, because this thing is a two-sided story of the story. The Blazers, they bless, the Blazers, they benefit. So it's not one person who's benefiting and It's not like in this thing there's someone who's been robbed. And I think there's a reason why this thing is happening. I feel like there's a gap that is there in the female students' lives, that the places they're feeling, that the parents they're not feeling.
Really?
Yes, I think so.
Please elaborate. Which gap?
Okay. If you go to the colleges, the universities, you found that most of the students there, some of them, they just paid their tuition fees long time back.
Are they not eating that tuition fees?
I don't know. Some they might be eating, some they might not even be getting it.
From the parents?
From the parents.
Are you saying our
Considering
parents, okay, I'll come back to you. So are you saying our parents, they are sending their kids, parents are sending their kids to school and then they don't pay the school fees? Okay, I'll come back to you. Is that true?
No.
Okay.
There is no parent that will send their child to school without paying their tuition fees. Even if that were the case, they'll probably make an arrangement with the school. There is no parent that will say, take your bags and go to school and there's no money when they know that they're supposed to pay. That's not true.
Okay. Someone said it's because of peer pressure. Is that true?
Even that is true, because you find that someone has everything. The parents, they are paying the fees. The parents, they are paying for accommodation. The parents, they are buying groceries and all that. But because they need now extra things that they want to upgrade. They want to go with the level that is there these days. So I can say there is pressure in it. That just the social status that girls want, just to be known that okay, I wear this and I wear this label, and that's it.
Okay. Okay, you can answer.
Because I agree that it's an issue of peer pressure, but how we define peer pressure is becoming different. Because peer pressure, they say it's because of peer pressure at school, but they don't define what will I do with that peer pressure. You know that at school there's pressure, but what are you doing as a parent to cover that gap of peer pressure I'm having in school? Because obviously I will see other kids having things that I can't afford. And I'm a person, I'm a human being, I've got feelings, I will still need those things, even if you tell me I can't afford my kid, these things. But when I go to school, that pressure will pressurize me to the extent that I can do some things that I wouldn't do in front of my parents, like getting the placer to place me.
I get that. So parents, what are you doing? You're saying you're not doing anything about the peer pressure.
I don't think it's an issue of that parents are not doing anything, but I think it's a given that we come from different homes, and the affordability of any home is different. So if your child gets there and they want things that they don't have at home, it becomes a problem. I would say from a parental perspective that parents must teach their children and must make them aware what they can afford and what they cannot afford. And I would also urge parents probably to send their children to schools that they can afford and that they're at their level of affordability. The challenge will come, you're coming from Cholocho and then you're bringing your child and you're taking them to girls' college. And maybe somebody's paying for their fees. When they get there, the level of lifestyle will probably force that child to end up looking for other means of matching up or fitting in. So I don't think it will be absolutely the parental fault. The parental fault will be in the fact that you're sending your child in a school that you as a parent can't afford. But also children get taught, especially this millennial generation now, they get taught, some know that we can't afford this at home, but because they want. And yes, I agree that there's a lot of peer pressure, but it's when from an early age when you instill identity in your child, they know who they are, they know what they stand for, and they know who to play with and not to play with, and they know to say no. Then it's not a challenge for them. When girls are going and they're buying, there are children that will say, look, I came here for school, I came here to learn, we can't afford this, that's why I'm here to learn, so that I will afford it in the future. You'll find that children who are well grounded. So it's grounding, teaching at home. And the challenge with that also is, particularly in the Matabeleland region and in peri-urban areas, you find that there's a lot of child-headed homes. This is where we have a problem. There's also a lot of grandfather-headed homes where the grandparents really have not much influence on the children, whether boy child or girl child. And you also find there's single parented homes where the mother has to work away and is never at home. And so the children are left by themselves, or she needs help with a lot of things in the home. So there are a whole lot of factors that where I feel or find that blessers find a loophole.
Okay.
Yeah.
As someone who is a blessee, is that the correct term?
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Would you say that there was a loophole which made you get into this relationship of blessers and the blessee?
You know, what happened when I was school, it comes a point when you just want to get into a relationship. And then along the line, you find that this relationship actually benefits me.
Oh.
And then it's about self-discipline. How am I going to use those benefits? That's why you end up with
So there was
different
no
scenarios.
pressure. In your case, there was no pressure whatsoever. It was a matter of choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I saw a loophole where I can benefit as an individual.
Yes.
I would say, Mambo, maybe I'll go and approach her just like any other girl, like you, a girl younger than me. But my objective is what I will get from that relationship. It's not about love or where she's coming from.
Okay.
So
and both parties are okay with the relationship? Like both parties know that there is no love in this relationship?
That's why I say I can't speak for the other party, I speak for myself. I can't say maybe.
Blessee or blessee, when you sit down at home and you soliloquy on yourself there, don't you ever wonder what this transaction means? Because I put in money on the table, right? For certain actions to be done, to be conceived and everything. Isn't that prostitution on a pedestal? Question one. Question two, what are you learning from this experience? When you go out to the workplace and everything and you want the promotion, it's hard because a certain Joseph out there is competitive and is doing better count than you. How are you going to get the promotion? Are you going to go back to your blessee, blesser type of transaction and say, I've learned how to benefit from that. And then as a result, I'm going to get my promotion by banging X and banging Y. Is it really what we want to inculcate in your own kids in the future, that when things become difficult, you have to rely on a certain blesser to come give you a buffer in life? Because when you realize we always have choice, it's not about poverty or peer pressure, it's about a state of mind. When you get into university, the blesser or blessee is not picking you up on the streets by the corner. They're picking you up where you're walking up in stilettos or Jordans or whatever, right? Which means you already have an economic barrier, an economic buffer already given to you by your parents or whatever projects you're doing. So the question is now, are you really going to go and succumb to peer pressure because so-and-so looks fancy? Is it what you want to learn over life? Because I really get worried by someone who comes up and says, look, I'm wearing Jordan 14s, and then the whole room gets impressed. Because Jordan 14s are not going to make supper in the evening. Jordan 14s are only made by your brain, right? That's how supper is made. So at the end of the day, if you're going to rely on a blessee, blesser situation, why are you not a prostitute at once?
Okay, fine. You caught me by surprise there because you were supposed to be representing the blessers, right? You don't want the blessers to fall. You are supposed to take their side.
Let me add
but
on
then,
this. Let me
yes,
add on
thank you.
this. I'm still representing blessers as well.
Okay, fine.
But at the end of the day, each and every blesser will know that for me to bang a NOMSA or whatever, I have to fork out $25, $50. We do this because we try. I'm about to make a loss. What am I going to look? What's my outlet? My stress reliever. I probably don't go at the gym. My belly is twice as big as it is right now. And what am I going to do? I'm going to look at the blessee, right?
No.
So I am representing blessers. But at the end of the day, those blessers are going to have kids as well, right? They're going to have kids. They don't want that kid doing the same thing they do because they know that it's not a right stress reliever.
Okay, but would you say, before I come to you, would you say that the blessers, they are manipulating the girls? Because I want you to reply to that as well. Because the girls, they are young, okay? They are in their 20s. We are looking at girls who are in their 20s, 15 to 24.
15 years to 24.
15 years to 24. At that age, you correct me, right? I'm thinking they are not yet mature to really know what they really want to do with their lives. All they want is what you say $20, $25. $25 is not a lot of money. But for someone who's in college, that's a lot. If they get that takeaway and that alcohol they are like, oh my God, I had a nice time. Wouldn't you say that blessers are manipulating these girls?
I wouldn't call it a case of manipulation. I would call it a case of taking advantage over somebody. Because in a situation where my friend has a Toyota Ranex or Toyota Land Cruiser and I want to go to Guerrero, I know he can't afford it, but I can convince him to, right? And if we do go to Guerrero and everything, right? Sure, there's an inch of manipulation, but I'll call it taking advantage of the person, right? And sure, that's the bad and the harm. But if the child has identity, if the child knows how to calculate 15 times 24 on a calculator, they should be able to sit down and say, where do I want to go? It relates back to identity we're given by parents at the end of the day.
Okay, I wanted to say something.
Okay. There are things that mom said there. And I like the part that she said we have a lot of child-headed families in the Matabeleland region. And that's one of the most things that causes these students to go for blessers. It's not by choice, but it's now the situation at home. She has to pay her fees. Maybe she has siblings at home. She now has to pay rent. She now has to buy food. So she now has to take responsibility of everything happening at home. She's now an adult, she's now a mother, she's now a father, because the parents, they're not present. And then we have the families that we have grandmothers and grandfathers. It's with our economy in our country, it's difficult now for my grandmother to say, I'll go to work and pay for your fees. I'll go to work and buy you clothes. I'll go to work and buy you groceries for school. I'll go to work and buy you just the small things that you need for your studies. So as a girl child, I'll now see, okay, I'll have to do something to continue my studies. I have to do something for me to survive. So not all of these people go into it because of choice, but it's because of circumstances now.
Can I contradict on that?
And then,
fine, we'll come to you.
And then I like what the presenter for Blessers said. I think on this issue, it's not the Blessers taking advantage of Blessers. I think it's just both parties playing each other. There's some that goes into this thing because I just want to buy a label. This is now a choice, it's not a circumstance. It's not a necessity, it's now a want. Just because I want this, I have to do this to get it. So I think when we are debating on this thing and when we are looking deep through it, we have to now see that not all of these kids do it because it's a choice. Some of them, they do it because of the situations at home.
Okay.
Yes.
So some of these kids might choose to find a blesser, but then the argument then comes when the blesser, you have to respond to that. When the blesser says we can't use protection, and already because the blesser is using money on the girl, they kind of do not have a say. Am I correct?
I wouldn't call it, but I want to answer actually my brother part, because he talked about the issue of taking advantage of what. That's why I say that first, sometimes they have a self-discipline as a person. You know what? Here I just want money, I want this. Now, nowadays there are many organizations that are even dealing with sex workers. I'm organization now, they will teach you what in order to have safe sex, you have to do this. These days we'll prep. You just want money and prep. And then the person I want to have a dry sex with you, in the sensitivity, without a condom, I'll give you $200. I'll say, give me 400 because I will not use it. But I know that I'm on prep. So I don't see that issue of who is manipulating who, because a possible can sit down and target someone, we are going for this one. How can we approach it?
Yeah.
And don't sit down. So I don't understand when they say they manipulate us because we're the one. Sometimes they just want sex.
Is there no difference between a sex worker and a blessee? And those two are different. Are they?
There's a slightly different. I think.
I wouldn't say there is much of a difference between the two. Yes, there is sex work, there is the blessing thing, but if you look at it deep, whatever thing that has transaction between the sex now, it's now a sex work because you gave someone sex and they paid you.
Okay.
It's now it's now a business. Some like, okay, I'm selling this phone, so I'm going to give you this phone and you're going to pay me $50. So,
but you see where our girls are vulnerable now because they are not sex workers. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes, they are sex workers because they're practicing it, but they don't know in their mind that they're sex workers.
I
So they
agree
don't
with you.
have access to all the education that you're mentioning right now.
That's the same.
So
Very true.
yes, they don't have, but they don't have access to everything that you have access to.
Yep.
So are we not saying they are being manipulated now?
They are.
Okay, as a psychologist,
Yes,
what do you
thank you for this time. To some extent, they are being manipulated. Like, let's take for example, let's say maybe the girl child is coming from a poor background, right? There are no parents or like less privileged. So what happens is the child will be like, okay, I need this fancy jewelry, I need the designer bags, I need 1, 2, 3, 4 things. And then it looks better at home. There are no things, there is no money, there are no finances, there are no materials. So what she does, she goes and look for a placer, and then they have that placer and placer relationship. And then as they continue dating, continue having their relationship, the placer would tend to have a bigger upper hand because he has got the money, he has got the material, he provides for the lady, he provides for the placer, right? So now because the child he has got needs, he has got financial needs or material needs, so she tends to be low. She tends to
in the decision-making process?
Yes, and she tends to accept each and everything. Like maybe for instance, if they say, let's go and eat a steers, she'll just fall. Today we are going to this place for a night out, she'll just to fall because she needs what? Some fire, some help. And then that's why I'm saying it's like the girls are being manipulated, they're being exploited because they are after something that they don't have. But to some extent, we have other girls that are coming from maybe middle class. Like, so those girls, they've got money, they've got everything, their parents they can pay for. But now the thing is they want to go maybe for Victoria Falls for vacation. They just want to live that luxurious life. So they just make a personal choice that, okay, now I have to what? I have to do this for my own benefit, but at home they can provide for that thing, for that child. So to some extent they are being exploited, to some extent they are not being exploited.
Okay, before I come to you, so some people were saying, you know, this we are going to put blame on the parents because charity begins at home. Yes. So is that true?
Look, like I've previously highlighted, one, you cannot blame parents because most of the culprits or the ones involved in this, you find that it's the parent. For the ones where the parent is the one, you can't even blame them because parents bring up their children in the right way, but children go astray. Like they've said, because of peer pressure or other reasons or whatever, some of these things are even spiritual. You might find that a child, girl child or boy child has an issue, a spiritual issue, or has got something missing in their lives, even if they have both parents, that makes them behave that way. So as a result, sometimes it's out of the hands of the parents. Parents may try, they may try to do this, like she's already alluded that sometimes you are providing, and we know how there's a lot of economy is. You provide as what you can afford. So if you then have a child who wants over and above, something that you cannot provide, yet the basics you're able to provide for them, they'll go out there. Can you then blame the parents that the child now wants to play with you, wants a car, wants to go to Dubai, wants to go to the coast? You can't. You can't blame the parents. They've done their part. They've chose, they've provided. They're sending the child to school or sending that young lady to university. And if they choose, because you find that there's a lot of first year, second year students who get into, it's not like the fees has not been paid, but some, they just love fun. And I personally don't believe that it's always the blessee, is it blessee, the girls or the boy who are manipulated only. Even the blessers themselves are manipulated also, especially if they're with a girl or a boy who can afford, but wants over an extra and they want money.
Oh,
you see,
yeah.
They can make themselves available to that blesser. You see, manipulate the blesser so that they can get money out of the blesser.
Oh.
So whichever way, there are some men who wouldn't want to bless, but they get into a stage where they are manipulated because we all know biologically and sexually men are weaker. So if they can get manipulated by those girls in one way or the other. It's more of sexual harassment, I can say. But to men don't view sexual harassment as sexual harassment.
Well,
They will not come out.
That's a debate for
Yes.
another day.
They will not come out and actually say I've been sexually harassed. Instead, they will go for it. So who's been manipulated there?
Okay, is she telling the truth? Can blessers be manipulated?
Blessers can be manipulated, yes. Yes, totally.
I
I
like
have
that.
nothing to add to that.
Blessed is not the only way to make money. That explains the reason why some people are security guards. That explains the reason behind crime. That explains the reason why people are digging holes underground. So manipulation is not a circumstantial factor. The reason why the existence of blessers or why the blessing thing is such a problem is because of nuance. What do I mean by nuances? We as society tend to classify certain things as wrong or right. What makes them wrong or right is our consensus. If all of us in this room agree that that is not a chair, within this room we won't call that a chair, we will call it a sitting device. So that is where society tends to lose the plot. We ought to understand what constitutes being right or wrong. In his context, if the notion or the motive behind going for a female blesser is because he wants to beneficiate, us all tending to strive for money is not wrong. What we now start to argue about is the method, to say what is moral behind that method. But back to my point, to drive this all home, to say if you're forced to make a decision between A and B, it's no longer being forced to do something, because you're going to live by that choice, you're going to trade off.
Okay, Ted.
Who is the blesser and who is the blessee? And secondly, what are the circumstances that actually lead to this transactional sex whatsoever? But I think personally, from a background of public policy, I'm a student of public policy, and I will respond from that perspective. One thing that we can take away is that there is an absence of alternatives for young women and young men, particularly for them to gain access to the resources that they are looking for. And they are now willing to do the most horrific things to access that money. In the same manner, we can calculate the logic of crime, the logic of anything that is socially unwanted. Let me explain what these young women and men go through. The blessee is not only transactional sex. These young women are made to do horrible things. We hear instances where the blessers, the male ones, have horrible fetishes like they go to Dubai, people poo on their faces to be given money. Even young males, they do it for other males. These young men that say they go with blesser, they have serious fetishes that you will not understand, and it's a traumatizing experience. I've never lived it. I've lived it through research. So one thing that we have to be clear about is our position in society to say, is this thing okay or is it bad? And for me, based on the researches that I have stumbled across, it is bad. One, a lot of people who have been involved in these kind of relationships, their lives are in a sorry state. I can tell you of an instance of a young lady who goes out with a blesser, and then the wife of the blesser is a powerful woman. She sues her or she does something funny to her, and her life is just like that, and it's bad. Same applies with the men. These are mostly married women who go after young men, and the men are mostly the powerful men, and each time they find out, it's usually a sorry case for the young men. And then another issue from the researches that we have carried out, particularly on student behavior. I'm doing this because I have been a lecturer and I'm still a lecturer at one of the tertiary institutions in Zimbabwe. We have looked at the behavior of students and did some comparative studies. Behavior of students in countries which have economic challenges, in countries which have a lot of opportunities, and in countries which have medium access to opportunities. And one thing that we have established is that there is a functional relationship between this kind of hustling and the absence of alternatives. If you go to colleges in America, students during the holidays can just look for a job and get it and get money. That new iPhone, they can get it. But come to the case of Zimbabwe, students can't just get a job, even doing a night job and so forth. So there is a link between the limit of the limits in opportunities and these alternatives. But what should we do? I am of the perspective that there are a lot of alternatives that these young men and women have, but they nevertheless aim for low-hanging fruits, because as a young lady, if you walk out there wearing a stiletto and a crop top, obviously a guy is going to say hi. But there are policy actors who are supposed to go to universities. We don't see them. The NGOs, we don't see them. They go and talk about peripheral issues like democracy, human rights. They don't talk about these things. To say, how do you teach students, young women and males, to engage in other businesses that are outside the bracket of commercial sex work? Call it whatsoever. Bless or bless is just a private school way of saying commercial sex work. Because if I have sex with you, I give you money, it's commercial sex work. So we need more interventions, particularly from the government, particularly from NGOs, which are more concerned about the behavioral change. But again, on the last part, there are types of students. Some of them are just black sheep. They come from good families and so forth, but they will still want to go to Dubai with a blazer. Those black sheep, there is nothing we can do. But in the cases of poverty, those black sheep can now influence other women or other young girls to engage in commercial sex work. Even as a boy, when I was still a student, we used to be given money by the blessers to go and bring young women. We would actually be given a car, you know, not just an ordinary car, top of the range V8,
and you did it.
black card. Yes,
Isn't it?
pimping
So now that you can afford, now you want to close the door for everyone else.
I'm not saying I'm closing the door for everyone else, but this is what I can tell you. For me, it could have been a conscious decision to involve other women because I was still young and I was manipulated by those guys.
So basically, I'm right, these girls are young.
These girls are young. But from further researches, we have been engaged and we have been involved in researches here and there. And we have discovered that the consequences are too much. And this is the big problem. A male who is probably going to consider blessing her does not mind going further to bless her and does not mind going back to bless her again. And it's a chain of multiple sex partners. And there comes an element of HIV and AIDS. This PEP thing does not work all the time. And because he is 50 and you are 20, and he drives a Range Rover, he's carrying $50 US and popping shampoo, you get the idea.
Yes.
You don't have bargaining over arbitration processes on whether you put on a condom or not. So either way, this thing is wrong. I think from that perspective.
Maybe something that should be understood. What sometimes we live with how society defines us. Because I said it's by choice, but circumstances. For me, by choice, sex is just but we want production. And for me, money for me is productive in this world. And I'm not sleeping for that person for reproduction purposes. I'm just sleeping for everything. For she's losing money. But for me, what am I losing?
But may I please ask you?
Because as long as I'm aware,
you are
I
allowed
have to protect myself.
It's okay. You are allowed not to respond. You can say no. Do you use protection?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Self-discipline because I'm not sure what about operate. For me, I'm not sure I use condom.
Yes.
And
because I also make sure that the person is not married or that's none
of my business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah, you can continue.
And another thing, of course, so being blessed over into wrong because I'm making sure that myself I'm protected.
Yes.
And I make sure that I get my objective is just to get the money and get out of the local things that I
think the girls in question, they don't have access to the education and knowledge that you have access to.
I want to contrary to the popular belief. For me, sex work is a profession.
Yes, it's a profession, right?
Yeah.
For them, it's not a profession. It's just like, I want to get this. They are doing it, but they haven't labeled it as a profession. So that's why we are saying maybe they are being manipulated?
Maybe in the sense of, I took it as a profession. That's why I was able to watch and research. But for me to be able to protect myself in this profession, what will I have to do? I have to engage with an organization like SESH, that offer clinical services to all sex workers for free.
Yes.
And they offer me information. I have to engage Lama Inaki. I'm a good organization, and the school I have to sometimes engage Lama dialogues. School must be the issues as Chassan allow. Engage with so that's an issue. But because people have charged to what those people are sex workers and what they're doing is wrong in society, so they don't give themselves time. These people, how do they do this thing? Because not all of them, are that reckless. Or what she just goes sleeps with everyone just for what in Torima. Abanya is a profession, she knows what I have, like other girls. If I say club, who's naturally cope. Not because I but because you're going to natural. She won't make an informed choice once I say I have sex, because maybe I have to use a condom. Yes. But it's difficult to negotiate for a condom. So she will make sure that I'll be sober up until I go home.
I like that.
Just for interest's sake, yes. Sorry to cut you off. So as a male sex worker, do you get into a relationship with no man? Ube le girlfriend ube lo mfazi sibile endlini and ube right ube umuntu normal. Like you lead another separate normal life.
That's a profession. It's like you going into
so
work.
If you have a wife or a girlfriend, uyakwazi into yenzayo?
No.
No. Yeah. So uyabumtshela ukuthi imali olayo uyithatha?
I wouldn't have figured with that level.
But I've seen some people who are actually okay with everything. They know that my male is a sex worker. That's where the money is coming. It's just a profession. No strings attached.
Where I have to explain my every movement, to how to I do this, how to I engage.
But you have my feelings. We don't want to see some tender is on none. And then happen we live the profession. We have your mama.
Yeah, but then for me, it's a point where I have to choose here in my profession. Because she will have to provide for me if she wants me to live that way.
I like that. Okay, fine. Teddy mentioned something. He said it's an economic issue. Yes. Do you agree? Since you are representing the people with money in this economy.
From our side, of course, the economics favor, right? The person who blesses the nation, if you put it that way, right? But when I look at the blessee side and you start analyzing it, right? Besides it being a situation or circumstance, which really is the case, right? Since you have choice, you find that it is mostly about what your mind up there is formulated out of, right? What context is in there? Because at the end of the day, if I have loose morals and my boundaries are so flexible that we call it water instead of a boundary, one. And two, if you don't really mind having those temporary fixes, right? Then everything's a go. Even murder is a go to just steal a vote, right? This is a situation the first faced with at the end of the day. So is it economic or not? Yes, you would choose. But every time someone says it's economic, I always beg to differ, because regardless of how things are, you have a choice to hustle, but you choose the low-hanging fruit. You choose not to hustle. You choose the temporary issue. I usually try not to call them stupid, but the boundary of me saying that becomes flexible as well.
Actually, I have not come across an organization per se that it's so objective is to teach about sex, and unless if it's linked to HIV. You remember when that time when HIV was very rampant?
So actually that's a loophole that we have.
Yeah, I've not seen an organization that is solely objectified to come and teach on sex. However, I'll say, especially maybe on the non-governmental side, there are institutions like the church, like the home, like the school. This is where girls and boys are supposed to be taught sexual reproduction and everything concerning sex from home, from the parents, from the aunts and the uncles, if they are there. Then we have the schools, I think it's now from grade 5 or grade 4, where sexual reproduction help is taught, where they actually know body parts, the functions, what is sex, what is it between male and female when they are having sex, what does that mean? So the school plays that role. Then the church, obviously through children's ministry and then through youth ministries. Those are the institutions that I know that fill in those gaps. But organizationally outside of those, I have not come across one. Maybe they are there, but I've personally not come across one.
Okay. Yes, you can say something and then we can come to you.
Okay, I hear everyone is on the places side, but what is everyone saying about the places? Because yes, he's representing them, but no one is saying anything about them.
In terms of what?
In terms of who is blessing us.
The parents are the blessers.
Okay, and then on the church part, she said the church part is there. It's not there. There are few churches that address the sexual issues. At churches, it's a taboo to talk about those things. The churches are there, but what is yes, because if you really look at this thing deep, even the pastors are the blessers. Even the pastors are the blessers. The same pastors who preaches about do not engage into sex before marriage are the ones who go back behind the scenes now and say, I want to bless you.
Okay.
So you see, it's now been difficult to do.
I think even in discussing this, we cannot shy away from saying and even to say there are gaps in institutions that are supposed to be doing that. Let me give you an example. When it comes to the economics and the child-headed homes, the orphans, them becoming the places, Zimbabwe as a country is supposed to have a ministry called the Ministry of Welfare. Yes. When we were at primary school, we had children that we used to learn with that we knew would not be asked about fees. Yes. There would be a form that they'll be coming to fill, because they were known as welfare children. Yes. Those were vulnerable children. So there's a gap also in the country and in the Ministry of Child Social Welfare. And so all these, there's gaps everywhere. Yes, so we cannot then demonize maybe one institution and say totally it's not there, because there are some who are doing it. There are some who are not doing it. But it's supposed to be done.
Is it safe now to go to the same church to seek for information, to the same pastor or to the same mindfulness that I know that the husband is blessing me?
Definitely not. But that's an exclusive incident. We can't put an umbrella on that, because it's not always where you find that pastors are blessing.
And this is why this discussion then shifts to the defensive mode on the blessee side, right? Because we never know who's the blesser, who's not. You get at the security guard outside, who knows? Maybe he's a blesser right now. So then we have to look at the defensive aspect as a nation to see how best we can fortify ourselves and how best we can make our decisions when faced with such a situation, because those situations are hard to predict.
Yeah.
But
I personally wish we had a real blesser. I know you represent them, but I don't think they're a real blesser. Because
maybe he is. Maybe no.
Okay, if you are, go and tell them. Because you know why I'm saying that?
Yes.
Because maybe there's some truth to what you're saying that we're not hearing from them. I've heard what you've said, but I've not heard.
Yes,
I don't understand why men do it.
Okay.
I don't understand why men do it. And maybe you can tell me he's stressed. I'm wondering if he would want the same thing being done to his daughter. I'm wondering if you'd want the same thing being done to somebody he loves and he cares about. I think it's highly immoral, and I think it's not only manipulative, but it's lack of not just mental capacity, it's lack of integrity at every level for actually these blessers to carry on destroying the future of these young girls. Not only do they get HIV, but they also get complexes. You find that those girls, they struggle with a lot of issues, a lot of rejection. They struggle with a lot of their self-concept is messed up. just because of those experiences. And you know, of one incident in one of our dialogues that we had in our organizations, there was a very sad incident of this girl who was HIV positive, and she got married to an HIV negative guy. And if, as a parent, if I've got my boy who's taken care of himself, he's 30 years old, he's a virgin, he's never touched a girl. He meets this girl in church, whether she's 24 years old, and she doesn't disclose her status. They get married, they got married. Luckily, now when you get pregnant, you are required as a girl or the female to test for HIV. The girl is turning out she's HIV positive. Luckily, the guy didn't catch it. Now, she's positive, he's negative, and he's wondering, but how come?
Okay.
On the issues of sex and sexuality, there are a lot of gray areas in our policy framework. And that's one of the issues that I think we need to really get to. But my point now is there is a lot of consensus on two issues in this debate. One, there is an element that sex is a choice. I can venture into sex even with a woman who is 3 times older than me, or a male who is 3 times older than me, which is a choice. But the bigger consensus is on, I venture into that sex because I want $200 at the end of the day. And that being classified as a profession, or that sex being used as a means to access certain resources, is something that we really need to talk about. And what are the key variables governing that kind of attitude? Because it is an attitude. In Zimbabwe, we're not out of options. You can't say in Zimbabwe we're out of options to say, I looked that side, I looked that side, the only thing that I could find was my private part, so I had to use it to get money. No, that's not true. But the reason that leaves these young women and males with that alternative, their private organs as their startup capital, it's because no one has took the initiative to go and tell them that you can go to Empower Bank, access a loan, start a Msiga, and then one day it will grow into a shop. And we need someone to take an initiative to say, no, dude, you can get $200 without screwing a grandmother. That is a possibility, and I can assure you of that. And no one has taken initiative to actually go and educate these young women and males. But there is an element of intersectionality of conflict between males and women. The reason why there are a lot of female universities who are blessed is because young women's in access to opportunities is embedded with some elements of patriarchy. A woman, let's take me and her, are approaching a certain opportunity, and she has the right to access that opportunity, and there is a man controlling that opportunity. Even if she is eligible for that opportunity, that man will still feel like she has to strip her clothes and offer her sex so that she can still access that opportunity. And women end up opting for transactional sex for things that legitimately belong to them because they are women. So those are the issues that we need to resolve. There are some elements of patriarchy. That is the element of manipulation that we are talking about. The same is true with women. If she controls an opportunity and I desperately need that opportunity, and even if I qualify without making a smile, I don't get it, I would rather, do something about it. That's the issue that we need to address. But over and above, I think at the level of public morality, it is not the right thing to do. This is what I can say. At the level of public morality, you can't opt for, let me not call it commercial sex work because I will offend a lot of people. Let me call it the blesser-blessee issue. And in many instances, if you look at researches of what kind of activities do these women or men want from the blessers, it's not like their parents did not pay tuition. No, these people are looking for champagne. These people are looking for trips to Dubai, so leave parents outside. And this issue of saying, yeah, there is peer pressure, no, you are lying. Because when you go to MSU, an average student has their mother as a civil servant. When you go to Bulawayo Poly, an average student has the same income as the next student. So you can't say, I go to a university and someone was driving a Range Rover, therefore they did peer pressure. No, that's a lie. We are not talking about, and chances are less likely that you are coming from ECAS and you find yourself at Harvard and there is no backup plan for you and you end up stupid. No, that's not true.
Thank you. You can say your last.
So I think such conversations, such discourses center a lot on semantics. So I'm going to talk about situational hypocrisy. It's something I call situational hypocrisy. What do I mean by this? There are two levels of engagement to hypocrisy. It's either everything is permitted or nothing is permitted. Justification comes from the motive. So I'm going to give an example. If we're going to go by the textbook definition of law, then the biggest criminal institution is the government. Here's why I'm saying this. If you are to print your own money, it's illegal. When government prints money, it's very legal. So you start to ask yourself, what is illegal? The action of printing money or the person who is printing the money? Same thing comes into such discourses, right? When you talk about a blesser-blessee relationship, to the two people or the two people carrying out that transaction, everything is normal because what they are going for is money. If I am to go dig in a mine or dig in a land claim, government will classify that as either artisanal mining or as illegal mining. But to me, that is a way of life. That is the reason why the issue of churches, the issue of social institutions becomes a very topical issue. We'll tell you about how if the Pentecostal church was to be taxed, so many churches are going to close because the issue or the topic of church isn't necessarily religiosity anymore, but it's more of a question of beneficiation. This explains why there's three-tiered systems in churches. VIP systems, the middle class, and then those who sit in overflow tents. But you then start to question that and compare it with the ideal of religion to say if we believe in one deity for a common cause, there shouldn't be stratification. But then beneficiation in economics tends to stratify. What do we mean? It tends to create classes. The same thing with the blessed-blessee relationships. We will discourse for almost hours trying to understand justification, to say, is it peer pressure? Is it circumstance? Is it just a lack of loose morals? All these topics come from justification because let's face it, there are 8 billion people on the planet. Each justification is going to be very different. And if we now want to snowball this into categories, we're going to have 8 billion categories of why we are doing something that is either wrong or something that is not wrong. So this discourse then comes back to what do we classify as wrong or right? When we do finally understand what is wrong or right, which might take ages, we then go on to the next question to say, how do we justify why it is wrong or right? It now comes back to being a chiasmic argument, to say we will never conclude the answer. So the only way to then find what is wrong or right is to find consensus. Most of us in this room right now understand that transactional sex is wrong. Here's why. Sex is supposed to be an expression of intimacy. It is not an economic activity. But again, it can be correct because commerce is the selling of anything, right? You can commercialize anything. Even selling air in this very room is commercial activity. So if I have the idea of taking sex, creating value addition by saying, if you want sex, I will charge you for it, I will give it to you. It then becomes correct in the commercial context. But on a moral level, it is wrong. So again, we now tend to come to strip apart what intersectionality and what nuances are.
Okay, thank you for complicating our debate.
I believe in science. There is a scientific answer to every problem. And the reason why we are saying commercial sex work is harmful, it might not be harmful in the UK because they have enough mechanisms to respond to its consequences. They have generated capacity, legal capacity, infrastructural capacity, health capacity, and whatsoever to respond to it. But in the case of Zimbabwe, the reason why we are saying transactional sex might be tricky for you is because we have not, as a nation, generated enough capacity to protect you. There are a lot of struggles that young women and males are going through in the profession of commercial sex work. 1. 2, scientific evidence that is available to us is pointing to one sorry conclusion. in the event that a lot of people engage in it. One, it's either HIV, it's either GBV, it's either harassment by the police, stigmatization, and so forth and so forth. I'm not going to say it's wrong or right at the level of morality, but at the level of science now, I would respond by saying, if you are engaging in it, you are assuming a very huge risk which you might not be able to take. And in the case that that risk actually manifests itself as a risk, no one will be there to help you. If you as a young woman, you are attacked in the profession of sex work and you go report to the police, because there is no law at the moment to protect you, no one is going to assist you. And at the level of science, I think those that are engaging in those practices, a lot of empirical evidence is pointing to the fact that the conclusion is sorry. It might not be sorry in the UK, but it's sorry in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So
Let us
can I
mindful.
just ask him a
Okay.
small...
One.
Okay, just you said commercial sex work in Zimbabwe is a gray area. Why are you saying that? Because as far as I know, it's not a gray area. It's a very wide area. It's illegal. That is why police, if they find you at certain Barrow Street and 4th Avenue, those areas where we know they parade, you get arrested.
So the reason why we are still having this debate to say, some end up saying I'm loitering, some end up saying, for example, I can't go and prove a case that you are a commercial sex worker, it's because there has not been any deliberate effort at the policy level to problematize or to police this thing called commercial sex work. So, for example, there is a framework governing, for example, sexual issues like rape. To say rape is constituted by factor A, B, C, D, and E. And there is a law which is imperative. The law needs to be specific to say if rape is going to occur under these circumstances, these are the indicators of rape. There is a legislation that says these are the indicators of rape. And if you go through these indicators, you have been raped. For commercial sex work, there is nothing like that. And there is this chicken and egg debate to say the police want to arrest commercial sex workers. They say, I'm expressing my right of movement, but you are not expressing your right of movement. You are blocking pavement. You go to the police station, they release you. Tomorrow they say loitering without the purpose. Tomorrow they say loitering with the purpose of prostitution. But at the court of law, if there is no law that actually quantifies or classifies commercial sex work, it's still a joke. It's a chicken and egg.
Thank you so much. Your last words, please. Please defend yourself.
Because ukuzwa issue lapha you are only crying for ukuthi young girls are having sex with old men, but angufuna ukuthi young girls bebekwazi yena bezazi ukuthi she has to have sex. Lana ama-parents befundisa abantwana nge-SRH, even abalapha abangani ba-worried about sex, advocate for sexual rights ema-university. Kuthi abantwana bema-university befundisa about sexual health from sex. Everyone is having sex. Ungahamba kathi esebhakula phana 80% yabantu uphume edobhile khwaphana, but some are not identifying themselves as sex workers, but they are going to have sex ngabantu bangasoma partners abo. So at the end of the day, everyone is having sex, but we tend to focus on abantu abathola imali. Maybe ukuthola imali ngikho wrong, but mina I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going opportunity which I can use my body to have money. But everyone is having sex and everyone wants sex.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm using sex to get something that may be immoral wrong, but for me, morality is defined by society. And the abantu abaku community okuphela, and the young community is content with having sex as long as it's.
Thank you so much. Your last words as a girl child.
Okay, what I would like to say is the blessers, they must fall.
Okay.
Yes, they have to, because they're damaging the girl child's life in many ways. We are being drugged, we are being harassed, we are being abused, we are being beaten, we are just, I don't even know how to say, but the blessers must fall. We need to focus on our dreams, we need to fulfill our goals, we have a lot of things that we need to do. Yes, money comes, yes, we buy things we want, but it's just a temporal solution to our problems. And what I would like to say to parents is, parents, let's have time with our kids. Most of the kids that are doing it, you found that there's a gap between the mother and the daughter. They're not open to each other, and she's not free to tell her mother that I want 1, 2, 3, whether it's about health, whether it's about what, or it's about what. But there is a very big gap between parents and children. I know some of parents might say no, some might say what, but what I know is parents are busy looking for money. Parents, they are busy selling things, and we don't have anyone to talk to. And the moment you say a word, it's either you're told like that's how you are, or you're told like you're old enough. Parents, they have this say that they say you're not old enough, that's why you're at varsity. They say that you're now old enough to make your own decisions. You're not old enough to choose what's right and what's wrong. So somewhere, somehow, parents have a hand in this bless thing. They have to play their part in our lives. They have to contribute, they have to do what they do. Let us fail on our own, but do not contribute in our failing.
Okay. Your last word as a psychologist.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm not going to judge the activities or the blesser relationship, but what I can say is I will look firstly at the positive side and on the negative side. Right? So, of course, I agree the blesser has to fall, the blesser must fall, considering the fact that the old men, they are dating the girls, they are girls of the age between 15 to 24, which is the teenagers. And then these teenagers, they are school girls, college students, and these girls, they are not psychologically mature. And on that process, they get exploited, they get manipulated. But the reason being that the older men have the upper hand of controlling the girls. They've got the upper hand of controlling the young ladies because the ladies, they're not psychologically mature, and they've got legs, they've got needs, like material needs, financial needs that need to be that need to be covered at home. And of course, on the other side, some is because of their personal choice. Because let's take, for example, you've got those children that are coming from a middle class background. Those ladies, they just want designer bags, lavish lifestyle. They just want to outlook their peers. So in that case, we can't say blessers must fall because they are the one who are just after the blessers, right? And at the same time, we can't say blessers must fall because if we failed to remove prostitution, sex work, then how can we remove blessers? Because it's all about a personal choice.
As a mother, I just want to talk to the girls and to the boys, but I just want to talk to the young people who are engaging in those activities, the blesser and the blessee, that it's not necessary. You always have choices. There is no reason to engage, whether you feel it's economical, whether you feel whatever the choice is, there is always a choice. You risk your life, you risk your future, and you risk the life of your future partner. And I want to also address the blessers. Stop doing that.
Simple for both sides. Right? I believe that both sides have to grow up and start thinking and rationalizing, right? On the blessee side, to grow up in the mind enough to realize that you're not a victim of circumstance, so do not paint yourself as that. That there's always a choice, there's always something else. Just take a bit longer to finding that out. Right? It's not worth risking your health or whatever. And then on the blesser side, to grow up enough in the mind to realize that the channel you're using to be it reduce your frustration, to exhume your stress or whatever, is not the right channel to do it. And you have to find something else. Hit the gym, be fit for once. Because at the end of the day, if your family find out, if your family were to find out what kind of a man are you, at the end of the day, what kind of a man or woman are you in the eyes of your family? And that day is important to you. I do know that. So be the best version of yourself, regardless whether the doors are open or closed.
Okay. Thank you so much. There you have it, Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for watching. Some say it's an economic issue. Some say it's peer pressure. Some say the blessers must fall, but at the same time, the blessers said, you know what, they mustn't fall because the girls, they are the ones who sometimes cheers for the blessers. Please do leave your comments below. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, remember, take care of others and yourselves as well. Bye for now.